The CDC seems to be saying we think we'll find almost all of it, that this is just sort of a little lapse because of reorganization and bookkeeping problems, but it's basically all there. Why should we care if they end up saying they've located most of this stuff? Why does it matter?
Well, I hope they've located it, but clearly over the years they've had break-ins, thefts, missing items that have gone missing and missing and missing. Nobody seems to be held accountable. Nobody's been convicted, as near as we can tell, of any crime. They've had warehouses broken into, computers stolen. I mean, you've got page after page after page of equipment that's missing today. They were warned about this a dozen years ago, and still the problem continues and worsens. And this is just one agency. Now, the scientists do a terrific job at CDC. Their property managers are failing the taxpayers.
Part of the reason they say that it's hard to track is because they've got 15,000 employees and things spread out over 40 countries. Is that a good reason for them to be able to say it's very difficult to track?
I'm sure they have their level of difficulty in tracking it. That's obvious. But then they should have systems in place to be able to track what they own. I mean, you look at this, 15 Toyota Condors, 7 Toyota Land Cruisers, 5 DNA sequencers, 3 video conference systems, 2 John Deere tractors, and a mass spectrometer. I mean, this is like the 12 days of Christmas, except there's no accountability. I mean, this is priceless.
When you looked at the list and looked through how long it was and the cost of the items on there, what were some of the things that went through your mind when you probably knew there would be some property that was unaccounted for, but when you saw the scope of it and the items on there, what were you thinking?
You're talking thousands of items, over 5,000 items. Many of them are computers. Others are as big as a bus. I mean, this is unacceptable. I spent 21 years in small business. I've been on an audit committee on a bank. You hold people accountable who are in charge of this. There are people in this agency that are in charge of managing the property. That is their job. They're not the scientists looking for, you know, germs and disease and outbreaks around the globe. They're just looking for tractors and Toyotas and spectrometers, and they can't keep track of them. And it's our job to hold them accountable.
Is it reasonable to expect such a large agency to be able to put its fingers on almost all of its equipment at any given time?
Absolutely. Now, we know that in any agency or any business, there's going to be lost equipment and there's going to be theft. This, though, was identified as an agency with a significant problem a dozen years ago. They were warned about it. They've had all these problems just get bigger and bigger in the last dozen years, not smaller and smaller. You're always going to have a lost piece of equipment, or somebody's going to steal a BlackBerry or a laptop. That happens. But then it needs to be reported properly, and where it is missing, they need to try and retrieve it. We have some intelligence that some of the missing equipment that was perhaps stolen has been for sale on eBay. And I mean, that's just, how hard is that to go track down? And so, I mean, this is an egregious situation. It may not be the only one in government, but it's egregious and it needs to be fixed, and that's why we've asked the Investigator General to look into it and why the Investigator General's office is going to.
The CDC appeared to be saying all this stuff is missing, and yet we know none of it was stolen. And I'm not sure how they could know none of it's stolen if they haven't been able to track it. Do you believe that, by and large, every piece of equipment will be found and tracked, and there is no theft problem there, and there is no missing problem?
How do I know? How do I know what they have or don't have? They don't know what they have or don't have. They can't locate it. They've not prosecuted anybody, and nobody in the agency has been held responsible for the shabby bookkeeping. So we as public officials, trusted with trying to care for the taxpayers' dollars, don't know where this equipment is because they don't know where it is. And you wonder, if we hadn't poked at them, would they be taking these aggressive actions now?
What have you asked the IG to do, and what is your understanding that he will be doing?
We've asked the Investigator General to go back and look at compliance with the original audit and to look at where this missing equipment is and just review the agency. Figure out what's not working there, help us identify that for them and for us, and then we can move forward on corrective action.
And why is it important to the American people? Are we talking science, loss of science equipment? Are we talking it's mostly important from the standpoint of tax dollars? Why should the public care about this particular problem?
Because they're footing the bill. The public's footing the bill for this agency for everything it does. And in this case, we're losing valuable equipment.